the experience that I had was just profound. Just I could like explore anywhere I wanted to in the whole cosmos, find any information out that I wanted to. I could ask a question and I would get the answer to it straight away. I would say now, actually, the first ayahuasca experience I had was probably up there with the best that I've had over the years. There was just all of this like really, really dark energies around me. I could sense that it was coming from the shaman. Negative voices were like saying that like the world's going to end, evil is won and darkness is taking over the world, and it was this like really bad trip. I was going through these cycles in my mind of like, when this is over, I'm going to be like screwed up for the rest of my life. I went to, different countries all over the world looking for different teachers, just for them to validate me, to tell me that I'm on the right path. I never got it once. There was no teacher that ever told me, oh, you're a healer or you're this or you're that. Not one ever told me that. And you know what? That was the greatest gift, that no one ever told me that, because I had to find that within myself, because I knew it all along anyway. I knew that this is what I was going to do, but I doubted that.
So, hello and welcome to our next episode of Ayahuasca Avatars. And I'm here today with Luis, and we just met not so long ago in the worldwide net. So, I'm just excited to get to know you a little better, because you mentioned about your story and your journey with the medicine, with the Mother Ayahuasca, was like pretty unique and scary and transformational. And I just wanted to share that with people, because I think it's a good topic to talk about. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
Start with, I always ask this question first, like, how did you get to the medicine? How were you led to the medicine? Like, if you want to just say a little bit about your background and what put you on this road of like healing and self-discovery, and how the medicine came into your life and what happened then when it did.
Well, it's a long story. I'll try and cut it down as short as possible. So, growing up, from dealing with like narcissistic parents, particularly mother trauma, from that, a lot of physical abuse and emotional abuse growing up led to me having many tricky health issues and mental health issues that I wasn't aware of at the time. Growing up, it was more just bad decision making, being involved in the wrong crowd, drug use, crime. And my life got to a point around 2009, 2010, where I was either going to die from drugs or crime, or I was going to be in prison. So yeah, a few things happened where spirit kind of intervened, and I was just so interested around that time in psychedelics. I always had been from when I was younger. I was always interested in them, but then life took a bit of a turn when I was more engrossed in harder drugs than the psychedelics. But then towards the end of this period of my life, I was very interested in DMT and psilocybin, and I actually made it a mission of mine to get hold of DMT. And it was in 2010 that I did DMT for the first time, and it was actually, that experience was probably up there still with one of the most profound experiences that I've had. And that was the turning point for me, because I had an experience where there was, other beings that were looking out for me. And as soon as I let go of that vapor and hit the DMT realm, that's where there was 4 huge beings that were waiting for me, and they told me that they'd been waiting for me, and they were so happy that I'd like made that decision to do it, and that they had so much that they needed to show me in such a short amount of time. But it was very clear that my life was going to take a different direction. So after that experience, I was then on the hunt for more. Like, there was just this like really powerful calling inside to want to explore spirituality, particularly plant medicine. So ayahuasca was then on my radar, because I just thought DMT was like a drug. I didn't know the actual source of it, or the traditional use, obviously, in ayahuasca. So that was then my mission, to try and find somewhere that I could do that. So that's what led me to it.
Wow, that's fascinating. Okay, I love this kind of transformational stories, when from the pit of the darkness, you are coming into the light. So it's so exciting. Do you want to share a little bit about what kind of drugs were you using mostly before the medicines?
There wasn't many drugs that I wasn't using, to be
Okay.
honest.
All right. Yeah, well that's a predicament for sure. Okay, and so you felt this call. We always say the call of the ayahuasca. She was on your radar. You felt called to it. And I think that's when we have this calling and we say yes to this calling and it says, yeah, this is something I want to do, I'm committed to, then things really, destiny kind of sets into motion and you have this expectation how this is going to look like. At least I had just this very naive, expectation how the medicine will heal and enlighten me and my life will just be so easy and perfect suddenly. And that was not at all what happened. So I know that you went through kind of similar journey. If you want to share about that, like how did you ended up, or how did you choose the place, and then what happened when you first went with the medicine?
Well, there was definitely a honeymoon period that I had with the medicines. That's how I liken to describe it. Because there was obviously, I came from like the depths into like all of a sudden the whole world was just beautiful again because I had found what I thought at the time, and I still believe now that I was looking for. At that time, that was like from one extreme to another. It was from hell to absolute heaven, and there I was still had health issues at the time, but it was, and I still had anxieties and ups and downs. But I found like a haven almost in the plant medicines and the psychedelics, like DMT, things like that. So when I found ayahuasca, I was prepared and willing and ready to go anywhere. It didn't matter where it was. I wouldn't care if somebody said to me that there was, risks or dangers. I took many risks and dangers in my life. I didn't honestly. I would have took it in someone's garage or someone's backyard if I had the opportunity. So I actually went to Milan to there was a place that had a conference in Manchester in the UK, and it was being almost promoted at this conference as there was a retreat. So I went to the conference and I went and booked on straight away. I spent 3 days at the retreat. The first time that I'd done the medicine, I was looking around in the ceremony and I was thinking, what on earth is everybody doing? Because everybody was dancing and they were all wearing white, and it was like, this is just crazy. At the time, I was like, this is just not my thing. But as the retreat went on and then the medicine started working. The first time I did it, it didn't do anything. Well, I felt like it didn't have an effect. It was the second night, that's when it worked. And the experience that I had was just profound. Just I could like explore anywhere I wanted to in the whole cosmos. I could find any information out that I wanted to at all. Like I could ask a question and I would get the answer to it straight away. And I was just like, this is just insane, the most amazing. I would say now actually the first ayahuasca experience I had was probably up there with the best that I've had over the years. And it was also made very clear to me in this experience. I know this is quite cliche, but it was like, this is your path. You're going to walk this path. You're going to work with the medicine. You're going to help people. And at the time I was in need of help myself. I had no idea how that was going to transpire, but it did.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing your story. Yeah, that's a pretty great first experience. Like my couple of first ceremonies were pretty dark, and I was like, after three, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Can I go home, please? So yeah, I would say it's pretty special. And about the guidance, what you said that people receive often this guidance or this understanding that this is their path, and it is true for some people, and for some people it's not going to be true. I think that's also what time will tell, because if it is your path, you will stick to it, and not many people stick to it, long term after the honeymoon phase is over. So yeah, I'm curious to hear, what happened next when, after this amazing experience, when you came back to, you live in England, Liverpool, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so must have been a little bit of a culture shock there.
Yeah, so when I returned home, I just wanted to tell everybody about it. So the first thing that I was like, "Oh my God, everybody needs to do ayahuasca!" Like I could have shouted it from the rooftops, and I was telling all my friends about it, and the magic was there for a while, like a few weeks, and then the more people I would speak to about it, the more like the magic was diluted by my own doubts and other people's projections onto my experience. People would be like, "Oh, so you've just been taking drugs all weekend then? Is that why you feel like that?" Or, like just, I think I overshared it. I think that that's a thing as well. Like, it's like oversharing or trying to preach it to people. It doesn't work. I think that was one of my first lessons that I learned. But then I wanted to just do more work with it. I wanted to find more places, and I actually found a group in the UK that were doing ceremonies, which was great because they introduced me to a whole new world of like medicine music and yeah, just like communities, and it was everything that I could have ever wished for. And very quickly I started to assist on the ceremonies, like helping, just like emptying buckets and arranging, because I had a lot of people that I knew that wanted to do the medicine, so they started to come. Very soon after that, I was helping to organize retreats and ceremonies closer to my home with this particular group, and then I went off to Portugal to do some retreats and ceremonies there, and that's when I got introduced to other plant medicines like peyote and the red path, that side of things. So that was an interesting part of the journey. And then I just knew that my next step after that was to go to the jungle. And yeah, everything was aligning towards it. It was just like this perfect, from like 2012 to 2015, 16 was like just this like honeymoon period almost, like, where everything was just, the stars were aligning. I was going to like be this medicine man. I was going to help all these people and wear the feathers. And yeah, that's kind of the where it was at that point. And then I went to Peru. I booked through somebody that I know who used to get medicine from this particular person who had a retreat center. So I just went off that recommendation, even though they'd never been there before, which was a bit reckless. I was very naive. I just thought that everything to do with the medicine was beautiful, and that the people that were working with it were all beautiful. And yeah, I think that I went to the jungle with a romanticized idea about how it was going to be. So there was a huge culture shock when I got there. I thought that I was going to be taught and shown what it was that I needed to do, apart from the fact that it was that dieta. So it was like isolation. I was there for 6 weeks, and it was just like isolation. Yeah, there's no one to speak to, and that was very, very challenging for me. I think I wanted answers, but the thing that I certainly wasn't expecting was how the ceremonies were held, which was in the pitch black, which is fine. I understand that's how Shipibo people work. And what I thought was that the people that were holding the space for me were going to be like welcoming me with open arms. And yeah, that wasn't the case. Over time, what I realized when I was observing the ceremonies was that the people that were holding the space for me, the two shamans, the elderly, they were in like their late 80s. I think, as far as I was aware, that the male shaman was in his 90s. So for me, that was quite appealing. I thought that these particular people would be full of knowledge and full of wisdom, which I'm sure they are. But I thought that they would have had my best interests at heart. But actually, it turned out that they didn't.
I mean, how did you realize that, or when, like, how was that? when you started to realize, that maybe they are not having, your best intention at heart?
So the first ceremony that I did when I was there, I noticed that the energy was different to the ceremonies that I'd done before. I'm so grateful that I had some experience with the medicine before I went, because I think things could have been perhaps maybe worse. It was the energy at first that I found that was very different. It felt like very uncomfortable. And I know that the medicine can do that. I completely understand. I've been through experiences with the medicine where I was facing trauma and difficult emotions and feelings, but it was quite evident to me at the time that these people were not the purest of energy. And over time, what happened while I was there was that I found that after each ceremony I was getting weaker, and there was no like resolution to each ceremony. It was all just very mystic, dark, and mysterious. There was no like in the past when I'd had experience, even though it'd be challenging, at the end of it there would always be like this sense of like completion in whatever it was that I was going through. And I found that the whole time that I was there, especially the first couple of weeks, was that I was starting to feel weak and starting to doubt myself, and starting to feel like there was a part of me inside that was thinking this is not right. And over time I was the doubt was coming quite strongly, but then I would go against it. So I think this was the beginning of a huge cycle of lesson for me, was not doubting my intuition. Because right at the start I thought to myself, this is not right what I'm feeling. Like I was feeling that something was off, and I went against that. And then there was some things that happened with another person that was in the ceremony, and she ended up going into the toilet all night, and was banging and banging and banging on the toilet door, and they didn't do anything to like help her. Or and then the next day after that the police came, and it was all very, very off, the energy. And then I just had a feeling that the ceremony that night was going to be, I don't know, I just had a real strong sense that there was something that wasn't right. And lo and behold, the ceremony that I had, the third ceremony that I had on the time that I was there, was the most profound, terrifying experience that I've ever experienced in my life. Like I wouldn't wish it on anybody. It was like,
Wow. Tell us a little bit about it, because now everybody is like, I want to hear that. Like,
yeah. So within like 15 minutes of the ceremony starting, the ambience in the air, and like the way that the birds and the animals were about, it was very creepy. Almost like there was like, I don't know, like an omen, like a bad, I don't know, it just felt like that there was something wasn't right. And that was before the ceremony even started. So when it started, the medicine kicked in for me in about 15 minutes, and usually it takes like a little bit long. It usually takes like half an hour to an hour, but it come on really, really fast, and really, really strong. And yeah, before I knew it, there was just all of this like really, really dark energies around me, and I could sense that it was coming through the shaman. And yeah, it was just really, really like negative voices were like saying that like the world's gonna end, and you're gonna like evil is won, and darkness is taking over the world. And it was just like really bad, like a bad trip kind of thing that you would, that's initially what I was thinking. I was thinking this is the, like a really bad trip. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And then before I knew it, it was like, yeah, it was like I was going through these like cycles in my mind of like, when this is over, I'm gonna be like screwed up for the rest of my life. That's like what was happening during the trip. And these scenarios kept playing out of me like being buried, like I was gonna die. And that kept on playing out for a long time, and until I accepted the death. I had to accept that I was going to die. And then after that, not only was I going to die, but there was a narrative, like there was something that was narrating the experience. There wasn't me, it was something else, and it was saying that when I die, not only am I going to die, but my soul's going to be tortured for eternity. So it was like the ultimate of, like, surrender and acceptance in a way. And I was kind of forced to accept, like, the ultimate fear, that, like, that, yeah, well, I thought that death was the ultimate fear, but then I was shown that it's not. The ultimate fear is that that everything turns, existence doesn't exist anymore. And that's what it was taking me to. So I, like, left my body, and then I was shown, like, the void of, like, the sort of, like, eternal abyss of nothing. And there was, like, these dark, like lords that were, like, over it, and it was, like, showing me that it was, like, the core of all fear, and it's the anti, like, the complete opposite of creation, and that all of creation was, in that moment, was about to just go. So then, like, time, everything that ever existed from the beginning of time until the end of time, just went into nothing. And then that was, nothing existed for, like, well, I can't remember, but I remember, like, in the morning, I thought I was dead, and I thought everything was gone. But then I started to hear, like, birds tweeting, and, like, as the birds were tweeting, I realized that I wasn't dead. But when I opened my eyes, I couldn't see. I was still in the vortex of the medicine. And as I could see again, I looked around. There was no one there. It was, everyone had gone. Everyone had gone home. Like, it was daytime. I'd been in that for 12 hours. Like, but so it was a very intense experience. But after that, I was just completely traumatized. Completely, like, just I just couldn't believe that like, I'd actually been through something so extreme, and yeah, I was alive, but I was very, very fragmented at the time. So yeah, I was in a battle of a lot of fear that was attached to that, and I could feel that there was a lot of energies, like entities, like, or I could feel them all over me, and there was, like, these stories that kept playing out in my head, like, and it wouldn't stop. And I just wanted to leave the island. There was, like, in the jungle, but there was no one there. I'd literally been left. Even the people that were, like, looking after me were not there. So I was just all night, just, like, the next night, I was still feeling the medicine. There was no one to speak to. I couldn't believe it, and I was, like, stuck on this little island. Anyway, so after that,
That's crazy that they left you alone. Like, I mean, that's already so inappropriate in any ways, like, and yeah, I can imagine how terrifying, this whole thing was. And then when you start coming back, it's like nobody there and they left you there. And it, like, when you started to come back, like, did you think that, oh, this was just a bad trip, or did you know for sure that this is something different and it's connected with these people who you're drinking with and stuff, or that wasn't really clear yet?
No, it wasn't clear that it was them. There was moments during it where it was clear, but then my mind I would doubt it, and there was a part of me that was just going, no, this is part of it. This is part of your diet, and everybody has to go through this, and this is there was a part of me that was, like, really, like, adamant that everything was okay, but then there was parts of me that were I was in a lot of internal conflict, because there was parts of me that would go, no, this is definitely not okay. Like, this is definitely not right. And then it became more and more clear, because, like, the ceremony that was, like, the following day after that, I really just couldn't bring myself to do it. So I called up the person who owns the center, and it wasn't the shaman. He was never there during the ceremonies. It was just the two maestros, and I said to him that I don't feel like I can do the medicine again. And he said to me, just because you're on your diet, just sit in the ceremony. And he actually came. He said, I'm going to come, and he came and sat in the ceremony, and I decided to have a little bit of medicine. And actually, the energy was completely different on that ceremony, and I thought, this is strange. Like, it was like the medicine was working like it would have, like, in the past when I'd done it. And then over the time that I was there, I realized that every ceremony that he wasn't there, it was all, I could feel all the the dark energies, and the like, felt like I was drained. I felt like I was being drained. And that's when I started to get more suspicious. But there was people that were there that would come for one ceremony, and they were meant to be staying longer, and they would leave because they didn't feel right, and it was everything was off about it. Anyway, cutting a long story as short as possible for the viewers and for the podcast. It was actually when I got home that things started to become more apparent about what it was that happened. Because when I got home, I was
So just
severe.
a second. So you finished the whole day. You did end up staying and seeing it through and
Mhm.
finished, and then you went back to England.
Yeah, yeah. I thought I'm here. I'm not gonna let it. I thought like if I go home now in this state, like I'll feel so bad that I didn't do it. Like that I need to finish the diet and then go home. So that's what I did. But it was interesting because towards the end of the diet, there was more people that came. There was like a group of people that were like a retreat almost, and the owner of the center was there, and it was different. It was different. The ceremonies were different energy. But then the shaman would always be like they were confusing me, like telling me things like people in my country have put curses on me and like it just didn't feel right. They were like manipulating me and like just trying to like it was interesting because every time that I would try I would like think they've done this. It's like they would know and then they would try to divert my attention away from that by something else. So anyway, when I got home,
No, I
I was
think that this is a really important thing what
okay.
you are saying. It's a psychological warfare what you are talking
Mm,
about. It's a
mm,
very like twisted form of gaslighting somebody and just once you're like, okay, this is happening, I'm sure they see that doubt that you are sitting in another ceremony when it's not happening. So you are like, okay, and with this, they just totally confuse you and manipulate you, exactly as you said, they divert you to from your center, from you get ungrounded, and you're not in your center and you get like you can be influenced very easily and they are influencing you in a very specific way.
yes, exactly. That's exactly what it was that was happening, and then I when I went home, I was just went down and down and down. Like there was like people who I'd known for like a long time, people that I was working with in the other, the communities that I was talking about, and people were turning against me. Everything was going wrong, work wise, things were going wrong. Like I was getting sick. I was yeah, it was like a downward spiral. Like things just were seemed to be getting really really bad, and like my mental health was deteriorating. I was hallucinating at night, and I was like seeing like the shadows and the energies and in the walls were breathing. They were like there was I was like if I know that if I'd went to see a doctor, I would be getting diagnosed with some kind of like disorder, psychosis or even hallucinogenic persistent, because I was having these flashbacks, and I would keep going into these thought loops of like terror that the world was going to end because the experience that I had. I was like going round and round and I couldn't get out of this thought loop. But I was aware of it though. I think that was the difference between like a psychosis where I was like where that would be like actually believing the delusions that were in my mind. I was actually observing the delusions in my mind, which was interesting. Terrifying still, but interesting. And I was stuck in these loops and these patterns for a while. And I found that a lot of people were, turning against me, attacking me, and like strange things were happening in the street. I'd be walking past people and people would be like saying, like cursing me, saying things to me. And like it was just all very bizarre, like especially the first 6 months after coming back. And there was actually I went to see a healer from Mexico, actually, believe it or not. He's a Marikami, and they're known to be very powerful healers. And I was recommended to see this person, and he told me that I've basically fell into a spider's web, in the jungle, and that yeah, that he can't help me. And I was like,
You serious?
yeah,
That's what the peyote told you, that
yeah.
he can't well, that must have been super freaking scary to hear that.
Yeah, it was, but at the
But
same time, it was at the same time it was like, well, I don't need you to help me. I help myself. There was inside of me, there was like a fire that was like, I'm gonna help myself. I'm gonna get through this. I'm gonna get through it. I was determined to get through it. But there was a lot during this period of time. I learned probably most of the things, the most of the tools that I have now that keep me very strong. I learned during that time because I was able to observe energies within that were affecting me and realize that they weren't a part of me. But then,
but I mean, how did you, okay, so you realize this, that you are like victim of some dark magic or
yes,
something. Like
yeah.
how do you set out to undo that? Like do you go to the library and read some books on black magic, or what did you do? Like
I did. I would like I mentioned when we had our conversation the other day. I was reading about like spiritual emergence and things like that, and I was realizing that I was going through a very powerful process. I was also having a lot of spinal adjustments that were happening. I could feel like my bones cracking, and like I knew that I was going through some kind of spiritual awakening. So this whole event triggered a like Kundalini awakening. I mean, I've heard so many people talk about it, and my experience is completely individual. It's not like anybody else's. But there was certainly a lot of physical symptoms going on during that time. But what I realized was that the thoughts that were coming into my head, like if I didn't let them enter, then I would always be separated from them, and I could start to feel the energy of these like entities. And the more and more I was like experiencing this, the more it was becoming more stronger. That clairvoyance almost, or the clairsentient ability of feeling this energy. And then I was able to communicate. I learned that I was able to communicate with these different energies, and I just asked them questions. I just asked questions, and I would always get an answer. Whenever I would ask the question, an answer would always come back.
tell us an example. What did you ask, for example?
So if there was an energy there, I would just say to it, "Are you a part of me?" That was one of the first things that I learned that I could ask, and it would always tell me. And then I realized that there was some energies that was affecting me that weren't mine, and I asked them where they came from, and they told me where they came from, and it was from the people that I was with in the jungle. And
You serious? They
yeah,
they told you that? That's that.
yeah,
Wow, that's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, and I also was able to find out that there was energies that were fragmented away from me that were also me. And I'd ask, "Are you a part of me?" And it would say yes or no. And if it said yes, I could bring it back. So I was like bringing back these like parts, like whether this is just well, I say that whether it's just in my mind, I know that it wasn't, because I could feel it. You know, it wasn't just a mental psychological process. This was an actual energy embodiment. You know, I was actually feeling these different parts of myself, and then I realized that they were all coming. Loads of different parts were coming. And then there was parts of people who weren't there was energies that weren't a part of me, that were actually coming from people that had died. And I was actually learning that I could help these energies to be released. So I was learning all these like techniques of communicating with like spirits. uh,
Amazing.
it's just like this crazy journey. But I kept getting the main thing that was bothering me was that I kept getting stuck in these thought loops that were bringing on fear, and I quickly realized that it was coming from these people. Now, I didn't mention this before, but I worked with a medicine called Cambo, and it was one of the greatest tools that I had at that point, because every time I would have Cambo, I knew, and I was so strong in that knowing that my intuition was right, that I could feel almost in my aura them intrusive energies trying to get back in again and create that reality for me. So I realized that the black magic was actually the projections coming from these people that are trying to create this false reality for me, to confuse me and to make me believe that, crazily enough, that the world's going to end. Like that was what they were trying to, for some reason or other, whether that's through them or through some other forces, you know, to make me believe that the world was going to end. So I know this sounds very out there and bizarre, but that was my experience. That's what was happening for me at that time.
No, I totally believe you. And I met like several people who had this type of experiences, like with intrusion or sometimes
Mm,
possession, because it seems to me that this was an intrusion, because as you could keep your awareness and you were not completely gone,
Mm-hmm.
while these things were happening. And you described it in such a good way. How does that feels? And I think this is the biggest characteristic, that it feels alien. It feels like it's not coming from you. It feels out of character for you, those thoughts or those feelings or those imagery, and part of you knows that it's not yours. So that's why you are like, that's weird. That's not like me,
Mm-hmm.
but then, you lose that trust and your faith. That's what the manipulation does. And the intrusion is trying to shake that faith and that grounding and insert the doubt,
Mm-hmm.
more and more doubt. So you are not so strong in your protection. And as you're not so strong, now the intrusion can happen. And, I think that's why the ancient saying in the Greece, in the temple of Apollo, is know yourself. Because if you know
Mm-hmm.
yourself and you are grounded in that knowing, no matter what, then that's your protection. There's no intrusion can happen when you are there. It's only can happen when we are not firmly anchored, and this is a big learning experience of how to discern what is coming from you and from your intuition, and what is not coming from you, and what is coming from a source that is benevolent, and what is coming from a source that is not benevolent, to you and to your well-being. That's one of the biggest learnings, here, I think, in this life, in this context. And I'm sure that it was a very intense experience, but it's also for me to see how beautiful this teaching was for you. And you actually learned this. Okay, this is mine, this is not mine, this is how it feels when you say this is how it, like, through your own experience. That's so typical for the wounded healer. You're trying to figure out, and then you have these excellent skills and wisdom that you gather, like along the way. So it's nice to see, that there was an orchestrating principle, in everything that happened, in a way, and of course, like, in a way, we can say that it's all happening for our benefit or for our highest good, even if it doesn't feel like that in that moment, but there are many perspectives that are valid at the same time. And yeah, some perspective, you can say that was not okay. And let's tell people that what's the difference between healing and black magic is that black magic is without consent,
Mm-hmm.
that's the biggest difference, that you didn't consent to this, they didn't ask permission. I mean, on an energetic level, unfortunately, you did consent in that way, that you have some kind of particular wounding that makes you vulnerable to certain energy that can attach there. So they take that as a consent, but it's not like, yes, I want to do this kind of thing. And that's why, for any kind of healer or wayshower, is your highest priority to heal yourself and purify yourself so you are protected, and definitely.
It's like a predator and prey situation, isn't it? It's like, if you look in the natural world, it's everywhere, isn't it? The wounded animal is going to get, targeted by the predator. And unfortunately, in this world, there is predators. And it's unfortunate that in the psychedelic world of, these cultures, that this stuff exists. And it exists in cultures all over the world. I think it always has done. There's always been the two sides to it.
Absolutely. If
Always.
if you if you want to read a good book, and I'm recommending to the audience, anybody who is listening, guys, you have to read this book from Clarissa Pinkola Estes, The Women Who Ran with Wolf. And I'm not sure if she was a psychologist or some kind of, but like, what was her profession, but she collected folklore, like fairy tales, but the classical that people keep telling their children through generations. And she would go to different continents, different countries to collect these type of tales, and she would put them into category, and she would analyze them from a psychological perspective, because she would say that was like part of the teaching, how people gave the wisdom to the next generation through these not fairy tale, there is a word for this, maybe in English, this learning tale, whatever it calls. And her first lesson was because she put together some lessons that were oh, these are the lessons that we can take away from these teachings. And the first lesson, believe it or not, is that predators exist. And I think this is what we are talking about, that when you are ignorant, immature, a childlike level, the child is full of trust, right? That's why the child has no fear, like if you look at children, you can see that. And that's also naive, and the naivete makes you vulnerable, because if you think, oh, there is no darkness out there, there is no evil, there is no bad things, then you are oblivious, you are not prepared, you're not going to watch out for the signs, you're not going to notice what's happening, and you're more likely to be a prey. And that was what she was talking about, that the first lesson is that predators exist. And yes, on a spiritual level, it's all love and light, and we come from the same source, and unconditional love and bliss and all that. But on this level of duality, where we play together right now, there is both sides and there is both energies, and you need to accept like reality, that this is how it is, even if you want to deny and shut your eyes and say, I believe only in the light, or not. This is the reality. And once you acknowledge that and respect that, then you know how to be protected from it, or how to navigate your way through it, or whatever it is. But I think that was like it sounds to me like a huge initiation for you of this lesson, of this learning, that okay, because as you said, you went into the jungle, that oh, the medicine is all good. I think that's one of the biggest mistake, that people think that the medicine is a benevolent entity, and the medicine is neutral. The medicine doesn't have any agenda, or good or bad, or things like that. It's really, how people use it, with what intention, and now you experience this. And that's why we need to be aware, that not everything is gold that is shiny, right?
100%. Yeah, it was actually I was stuck in this thought loop about that, like that I didn't want to believe that there was this bad, people. Like I didn't think that, like I was stuck in this, no, there's definitely something wasn't right with these people. And then there was like this, no, 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 this is all meant to be. So I was stuck in this, like, no, that they can't really be that bad. And I was stuck in that for months, and I just kept going around into it. And every time I would like make some progress, I would end up, going back into this loop. And I knew that at that point, what I needed to do was I needed to go and face it again. So I booked to go back again to the same place the following year.
Wow, that's very interesting. Tell me more. Like that was your deep feeling, that you have to go back to complete something and to free yourself, that kind of way.
I needed to see the truth. That's just what I knew, that the truth was going to set me free. And if I didn't go back, I would, because it was so strong, the loop, the thought pattern of like doubting myself, that I needed to go back to fully find, trust in my intuition. So I went back though with an open mind, because I was thinking, okay, I'm in a slightly better place than what I was the first few months after I came back. I'd been working with Cambo quite a lot as well, and that was really helpful. It brought me back into my own energy. So I thought, there was a couple of people actually that I knew that really wanted to go, and I didn't want to like scare them and put them off going, but they were like, oh, we're going anyway, like we found that place that you're going to. And I didn't want to say don't go, because I was going. So they were like, well, you're going, can we come with you? And I was like, oh. So anyway, I thought, okay, well, maybe it's not that bad, and maybe if there's a group of us, it might be different. And yeah, so anyway, there was two other people that came with me. And anyway, I didn't mention anything to them about what had happened with me. I just kind of like thought, oh well, we'll just see how it is. And yeah, maybe it's all in the past, and this time it's going to be different. But what happened was, as soon as I got there, the female maestra, Alejandrina, her name was, she was very, very suspicious when I arrived. Like there was definitely a sense of discomfort within her about me being back there again. And straight away she was like looking into my tambo, walking past, acting really strange. And I was just straight away, but I was just like, I knew it. I just knew it. I knew that she was up to something, or she was responsible. She knew that I was going to find out. That's what literally how I was feeling. And the male maestro actually was there when I first turned up, and he didn't come to the ceremony. It was just her and me and the two guys that came with me. So we sat down in the first ceremony, and straight away she started doing the Icarus, the chants that she was doing on the night when I had that really really bad experience. I can remember it, and I could feel it all coming back on again. I could feel the start of what was happening on that one night, the previous time, and I could feel she was weaving it. She was creating that within me, and I found this like strength inside of myself, and I just said no. I just said no. Like that's all that was like coming through inside me was no, and it stopped. And she was purging. She was literally purging, like coughing and purging. And for the next few days, she started to get really sick, and she had like cold, and she was coughing really really badly, and she ended up going into hospital, believe it or not. And then the guy who owned the center ended up bringing in two other maestros from a different tribe. They were Ashaninka maestros, and they were on such a different level, like beautiful, amazing. So like after she'd gone into hospital, they brought these different people in, and the ceremonies were just wonderful. And I was learning so much about my own intuition, and I just knew in that moment I was like, I'm free from that now. You know, I've took my power back from that whole experience. So yeah, so the rest of that diet when I was there was just like, you know, doing inner work, learning about the plants, and learning about healing, and yeah, so many like personal realizations. Like that's how it should have been. I realized there was a contrast because I'd also lost faith in the medicine and like the indigenous people, everything. I lost faith in everything. That's what the black magic does. It takes the faith away from you. And what I realized overcoming it was that I'd done that by restoring my faith and also my trust in my intuition.
That's amazing. That's what I call a powerful initiation.
Mm.
And the death and rebirth experience. And I think it's just so it reminded me of one of the stories that I heard recently. This person was like saying about his medicine journey, that he was in this place of this darkness and this pure evil, and this monster, this huge monster was like staring at him with the viciousness and with the I want to kill you and I will, like kind of vibe. And he was there for a while until he realized that he is feeding, this monster, and that's the only way the monster exists. And once he realized that, everything disappeared, and he found himself in this beautiful place in nature or something. And I think that, this is what really shadow work is. I mean, on a deeper level, is to like face your fears, and then being able to discern, what is for you, what is not for you, and say no to think, because it has no power. And this is where the consent comes in. Like, you didn't give you before, you gave consent some unconscious way that we were not aware, and you took your power back, and you just said no, and she had no power. The magic was stopped. Like, once you do that, there's nobody has power over you. And how empowering is this for you? I want you to say a few words, that you as a person, like, how does this experience change your life, and how you look at life and yourself, like, since you went through this experience?
Well, it made me realize that life is magic, and that the like from when I came back to from the first year, and like everything was going wrong, and like I was the black magic created that for me. The curse almost. I was cursed, and things were going wrong, and that's because I was believing in the illusion. And that's what these like black magicians doing, is that they're trying to use illusion, like things that aren't true, to take you out of your own truth. So for me, the whole experience give me a very good filter between what's real and what isn't. And I think that's probably the most valuable tool that I got from it, because now I'm quite easily decipher if someone's lying to me, if someone has a bad agenda, if I don't even have to say anything, or even question that person. I just know straight away. I can feel it. So I think that the most empowering thing that it's given me is this filter to be able to discern what's real and what isn't.
beautiful. So, can you share a little bit like how is your life looks like? Because I'm sure that you moved away from the crime and the drugs as you were
Yeah.
going down on the plant medicine path, and if you have a vision for your future, or what is that you are excited and passionate about right now?
Well, so around that time, the second year that I came back, that was 2016, and it's 8 years ago now. From then until now, I would never have imagined how beautiful that my life would become after that, and how many people I'd be helping and working with, and yeah. So now I actually run two community centres in Liverpool that help people with mental health issues, and we work with we do like wellness and yoga and things like that here. I also run an association of Kambo practitioners, so I train Kambo practitioners, and from 2016 onwards, when I came back after that second diet, I was just felt more called to work with the medicine, and I was doing it, and I started working with it in small circles with people, and I've been holding ceremonies since then. So yeah, my vision for the future, I wouldn't want to I wouldn't want to even dilute the possibilities of what the future holds, because everything that I've ever predicted about the future, it's always been 10 times more spectacular than what I could have thought, So yeah, my vision for the future would just be bring on whatever.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, be careful what you wish for, because you think, okay, what else can happen? That's not a good question to ask, because then the universe is like, oh,
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
show you what else. Oftentimes I have this experience with at the end of my medicine journeys that I'm just getting this like amazing download, and so much and so deep. And I'm like, wow, now I know everything. It feels like it, in the moment. And then, the medicine always tells me that you just so see this much,
mm,
just to stay humble, because we go through especially these kind of experiences which are very humbling, but also they strengthen the ego, and it's like, I went through this, so now I am like somebody, and you are somebody, you are a much more grounded and discerning and aligned person for sure, but that doesn't make us better, than other people, and that's one of the delusions, that is often there. And I think it's just such a great example what you went through, of people that they really have to understand to how important this is to be in a safe place and with people who are working with this medicine with the intention of healing and awakening in a safe way, in a responsible way. And as you said, on the higher level, this was your destiny. Did you contracted this experience on some level? I believe so. Did it turn out good? Did you do the alchemy? Did you transform this into a huge gift that will keep giving to you and to the people around you? Absolutely. So was this a bad thing? Like it's so relative, right? But I think my takeaway is, because I used to think about this so much, that is not necessarily to go down this road. Like you can come to the same teachings and the same realizations in a much more nicer way, or
yeah,
comfortable, pleasant way, kind of, so I just don't want people to think that in order to be initiated, or to go to a rite of passage, you have to go through something so dark or so horrible, because this is not necessarily the case.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with that. Like, there's people that I've taught before, and I've got students and people that I've worked with on a one-to-one basis who I've told the story to, and they're like, oh my god, like terrified them. People have said to me that they had nightmares about the story that I told them, and they were like, oh, please to God, I hope that I never have to go through something like that again, on this path. And I was like, well, if you listen to what I'm teaching you from what I learned from the experience, then the chances are you probably won't have to go through that. But at the time, I didn't have, that awareness of like, trusting my intuition and things like that. I had to learn the hard way.
Absolutely. Yeah, and this is one of my intention for the last couple of years. Part of my intentions is to learn, in the easy way. Like, I mean, nothing is purely easy for sure, but there is a choice, and I think that often we are programmed to think that, you have to struggle a lot to achieve some kind of results. And I think once we reach a certain level of awareness, that's not necessarily true anymore, and
Mm.
that's a nice thing.
There was a huge conclusion actually to all of this, because I really wanted to find out, how did I let this happen? Why did I just trust these people? And what is the greater lesson in this for me, as well as, find trust in my intuition, was I realized that there was a pattern of me seeking validation. So, I told you at the beginning that felt like that I was a healer, or I was going to be on this medicine path. Well, I unconsciously was seeking validation for that by these people, and not just by them people, but by other teachers and other situations that I noticed where I was also being manipulated. So it wasn't just by then. Even after that, there was still teachers that I was like, looking up to, who were also doing not quite as extreme, but like on a similar level. There was a pattern playing out of me looking for validation and being manipulated. And I realized that I was looking around, like, yeah, I went to, different countries all over the world looking for different teachers, just for them to validate me, to tell me that I'm on the right path, which is interesting, because I never got it once. There was no teacher that ever told me, oh, you're a healer, or you're this, or you're that. Not one ever told me that. And you know what? That was the greatest gift, that no one ever told me that, because I had to find that within myself, because I knew it all along anyway. I knew that this is what I was going to do, but I doubted that. So it was when I actually took ownership of, do you know what? I don't need anybody to tell me where I'm going on this path. I don't need anybody to validate me. And as soon as I made that realization within myself, all of a sudden, all the validation started coming. And everybody was like supporting me, and I built
Of
my
course.
team in the ceremonies, and the association grew, and I didn't ask for validation from anyone, and all of a sudden it just came. Yeah, so great lesson.
Yeah, trusting ourselves and following that intuitive guidance. That's basically what we are talking about, following the heart. That's what it
Mm.
means, that you are describing, in the last hour, following that heart, and that pure higher guidance that comes through that, instead of the mind that can be manipulated so easily, as you said, while the heart doesn't filter through the information that comes through the heart, and from that higher aspect doesn't filter through the mind. So therefore it cannot be contaminated, and it's a feeling. There are no words there, like it's not something that can be distorted on that level. And we are programmed to listen to the mind, and make decisions based on that, and ignore, this guidance. And it seems that was a very powerful lesson for you to come back, and also to reconnect to your power, because that's where the power comes from, not just the answers, but the power. And I think your story, it resonates so much with mine and many people, because that's what we do. You just keep searching, seeking outside of you, until, and for me it was also the ayahuasca who changed the trajectory of that quest. And it was like, no, it's inside you. Don't go to, the teachers for the answers. Is all inside of you. And that was a beginning of a beautiful journey. So thank you so much for sharing your experience so honestly and openly. Do you have like a website or social media or something you want to share with the audience where people can find you?
I do have an Instagram page, and it's the Medicine Man podcast. It's just the Medicine Man, and that's on Instagram. I also have a website called the Cambo Practitioner Alliance, and the Inner Guru, which is my community center in Liverpool.
Mhm. Awesome. We're gonna put these in the description for the podcast, so people can find the links and click on it. And yeah, I'm sure that we will come back again, for more to share in the future. Thank you for listening, and share this episode, and subscribe to our podcast, and check out Lewis's podcast, The Medicine Man, that we will also include the link for. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening, and leave a comment if you enjoyed this episode. Help us grow our community by sharing this episode with your friends and subscribe to our channel to receive the latest on ayahuasca-assisted therapy. To embark on your healing journey or to start a new career in psychedelic-assisted therapy, go to my website, avatarhealingarts.com, and get in touch. And of course, stay tuned for the next episode.